Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello and welcome. I'm Zahack Tanvir and you're watching Candid Talk. And today we will be discussing about the ongoing conflict which is happening between Armenia and Azerbaijan. What exactly is happening between these two countries, because a lot of people have been messaging me lately asking me about what exactly is happening between these two countries. And in fact, a lot of Pakistanis, they are supporting Azerbaijan. So the basic idea about this discussion is to help you understand about what exactly happening between Azerbaijan and Armenia. So for this discussion, we have an amazing person joining us from the United States, Irina Tsukerman. She is Vice President of Republic Underground Truth Unpolished, and she is human rights lawyer, and she is national security analyst, and she has been working on the Azerbaijan issue, and she has been involved in South Caucasus issues for several years and traveled to the front lines in 2018. Welcome, Irina. It's our pleasure to have you here for this discussion.
Thank you so much for hosting.
So without any delay, let's begin the discussion to help our viewers understand what's going on between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So the first question is, why do Azerbaijan and Armenia hate each other? Please tell us briefly about what's the bone of contention between these two countries.
While the two countries have had issues going back hundreds of years to the time when they were khanates, the current issue is actually literally about one thing and one thing only, which is the Armenia's occupation of Nagorno-Karabakh, which constitutes approximately 20% of Azerbaijan's territory.
So this is about 20% of Azerbaijan territory, Nagorno-Karabakh. So what is the current situation of Nagorno-Karabakh, and what's the history about Nagorno-Karabakh? Was it a part of Armenia, and was it forcefully given to Azerbaijan? What is the history about it?
Actually, the history goes back long before even the Soviet Union. This territory was under the control of groups that then that eventually became Azerbaijan, going back to the Treaty of Golestan with Russia. And essentially, it has been historically under control of Azerbaijanis, although a lot of Armenians had resided in the area. But even in 1918, there is historical evidence of Azerbaijani officers essentially treating Nagorno-Karabakh as its own territory, and there was no real challenge to that. It was considered accepted. So by the time the Soviet Union broke up, that territory was not given to Azerbaijan by the Soviet Union, or for that matter, by the United Nations. It was a recognition of historic fact, of treaties that go back to over 100 years.
So what we understand is ethnically Armenians live in Nagorno-Karabakh, right? So from a technical point of view, shouldn't we be supporting Armenia? What do you think about it?
Actually, quite the contrary. The territory had mixed population, but over 1 million Azerbaijanis were ethnically cleansed by Armenians following the invasion by outside forces. Mm-hmm. And they were thrown out. There were mosques destroyed, and many of these individuals ended up as IDPs inside Azerbaijan. Others had to flee to Europe in the other countries because they lost their homes and everything else. So no, this is not an appropriate way to discuss territorial disputes, even mm-hmm. if there are some internal tensions, because mm-hmm. you don't ethnically cleanse people, then demand to be supported.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about the allies of these two countries. So who's on the Armenian side and who's on the Azerbaijan side?
So Armenia is very strongly supported by Russia primarily. Mm-hmm. It's also supported by Iran, which is less known to people, and Qatar, which is even less known than that. But there is a strong evidence of close alliances between these three groups. Azerbaijan has had a close alliance with Turkey long before Erdogan because of ethnic and cultural issues. Mm-hmm. And there is also Pakistani support, but that support is mostly local support. There's also of course, a great deal of support from South Azerbaijanis in Iran, which comprise of over a significant portion of the population. Actually, non-Persians in Iran are the majority. So, and Azerbaijanis are the majority of those.
Uh-huh. What exactly is the basis of the Iranian regime support for Armenia? I mean, you say that Iran is on the Armenian side. What people see is Armenia is a Christian-dominated country, and Azerbaijan is, in fact, they have the Shia population. So technically, Iran should be supporting Azerbaijan, but Iran is on the Armenian side, and on the Azerbaijan side, as you have mentioned, the Turkey, and we have also seen Israel is also on the Azerbaijan side. So what is the basis of Israeli support for Azerbaijan, and what's the basis for Iranian regime support for Armenia?
So interestingly enough, Iran, while claiming itself to be this forefront in Muslim, it has tried to make every issue about a pragmatic geopolitical route whenever it comes to its own interests. Azerbaijan is a threat. For one thing, Iran is concerned about the internal issue of Azerbaijanis becoming too ethnically connected to Azerbaijan and not considering themselves Persians and basically challenging the regime.
Mm-hmm.
The second issue is that they do not accept Azerbaijan as a neighbor Azerbaijan is a challenge for them. Azerbaijan is a Shia majority country that rejects Khomeinist version of Shiism.
Mm-hmm.
It is largely a secular country. It is proud of its Muslim identity, but it accepts all faiths, and it actually promotes Sunni Muslims. There is no issue between them, and they're actually a dominant force in the military. That is a huge challenge to Iran. So actually, it is better for Iran to align with Armenia and to essentially build bridges with Russia in that way for geopolitical reasons than to want to support a country that actually rejects its path and it challenges Iran. It's a stumbling block. In terms of Israel,
yeah. Please continue.
In terms of Israel, Israel is actually it has a strong relationship with Azerbaijan, but it is also an ally with Armenia. It has not taken an official position on this conflict. It has diplomatic relations with both countries, and also has both a significant Azerbaijani Jewish community and an Armenian Christian community inside. So it has been a complicated issue for Israel, but it has the volume of trade and the support and the military coordination with Azerbaijan is significantly greater than with Armenia. There is a very good connection on the Jewish population in Azerbaijan enjoys not just protection but full integration into the country. The people that are treated completely equally. There is a very close security coordination in Armenia. Jews have been persecuted, and now Armenia is basically a mono-ethnic, mono-religious state.
As you mentioned that Turkey before Erdogan has been supporting Azerbaijan, but recently we have seen, and there have been reports that Erdogan has been mobilizing Syrian jihadists in Azerbaijan. Does Azerbaijan endorse this act? If no, then what's Azeri government's stand? And does Azeri government do anything to keep the Turkish jihadists away?
So here's an interesting point. There's been reports from both Turkey itself and from Armenia and even from the same Syrian jihadists, but there is no evidence of. Oh, I was going to say that both Turkey and Armenia have used this comment about alleged mobilization of Syrian fighters and jihadists. In reality, neither side has produced any evidence of those jihadists being on the ground. Syrian jihadists boasted about being ready to go and being on their way to go, but in reality, there is no satellite evidence or video evidence or any other kind of evidence of jihadists being on the ground. There's been no statements from the US other than acknowledging that the reports coming in, but they have not actually acknowledged these people being there because they are not. Actually, Azerbaijan has taken a very hardline approach in religious extremism of any kind and would not have allowed these people to come in. What Armenia and Turkey are doing is using this propaganda to boost each other's, to boost their own agenda in information warfare. And both are fighting over Azerbaijan. They're both using it to kind of isolate Azerbaijan from the West. It's a very pro-Western country, and Turkey is trying to create this international antagonism towards it and move it closer to its own camp as a result of perceived Western betrayal. Armenia is trying to make Azerbaijan look bad for supposedly welcoming jihadists. So that's all there is to the story.
It's been reported that Azerbaijan has been asking Turkey to be as a mediator, but Armenia doesn't accept Turkey to be the mediator. What's the thing about it?
Well, the reality is, it's not so much about mediation as about the fact that Armenia is not interested in keeping to UN resolutions which required it to negotiate withdrawal from these territories. It has been found to be violating multiple resolutions. It has attacked civilians in the past. We have seen that Moscow brokered a supposed ceasefire, but the ceasefire only allowed Armenia to rearm and attack a major civilian city in Azerbaijan. So the reality is, as much as you can question the credibility of any particular country, you also need to ask yourself what is driving their aggression. At the end of the day, it's not, if you want to look for excuses, then nobody is ever going to be good enough.
Do you think the timing is bad for this conflict because United States is busy with the elections and everybody is battling the pandemic situation? So do you think this was done deliberately?
Yes, absolutely. There was certainly a timing issue. Also, the fact is this is also an issue of energy. We have seen there was a preparatory attack on Tavush, which is Azerbaijani territory. There is no occupation of Tavush. It's under Azerbaijani control, and it's very energy rich. During the course of this war, there was also an attack on a major pipeline, which presents a challenge to both Russia, Iran, Qatar, and actually Armenia itself, because it has been working on energy projects with all of these countries. So we can see that on the one hand, there's a pushback against U.S. sanctions on Russia's pipeline to Europe, and its sanctions against Iranian energy interests. On the other hand, there is a good timing for launching a conflict when everyone is preoccupied with everything else, and no one has really time to discern the information and to analyze the information. And the administration is in a tough spot because it also has diplomatic relations with both countries, and it's also concerned about Turkish expansion in the region, and a lot of the European countries are siding with Armenia, so that creates additional diplomatic challenges.
Okay, so you think that Turkish involvement is more about the expansion. So for this, is this the only reason, or Erdogan also has some other benefit in getting involved in Azerbaijan?
Well, for Erdogan, the biggest benefit is creating chaos and allowing himself to be seen as an actor that can jump on any conflict and turn it into a major war, even if he is not actually donating a lot of anything except for propaganda to this effort. In this instance, he's not expanding anything. His own troops are not on the ground. Even the jihadists are not on the ground. All he's doing is boasting and making statements and creating this perception of chaos, creating divisions. Most importantly, he is dividing allies over Azerbaijan issue. Azerbaijan is a very pro-Western country with strong relations with Israel, with the United States, growing relationships with UAE, possibly the Arab world. It's tough on extremism. This is not in Erdogan's interest to keep Azerbaijan in the camp of these countries. So his involvement, a lot of it is as much about supporting Azerbaijan is pursuing his own agenda and creating divisions and creating in the camps of the allies, alienating from Azerbaijan and having them fight each other over whose side they should be on in this matter.
Mm-hmm. And how about the Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Bahrain? Where do they stand in this conflict? Whom do they support? Yeah.
Yes. So in terms of Middle Eastern states, they have been formally neutral. They have not gotten involved, but informally, there is a lot of concern about Turkey's expansion. And none of these countries have necessarily been experts on Caucasus, have not prior to this been paying much attention in the past to the conflict. So it's very easy for Armenia to present this as a Turkey versus the West issue. In reality, it's not. In reality, Turkey, Qatar, Iran, and Russia are playing a game. None of these countries are friendly to the Arab states, really. All of them are using them in some capacities, and all of them pursue self-serving agendas. So this conflict has been deliberately exacerbated and instigated to kind of, again, divide these states and draw them into an issue that they themselves do not fully comprehend. They've been issuing statements in support of Armenia, and a lot of these statements are not factually true because the Syrian jihadist story can be traced back to a source that's actually has been working with Qatar and based in Istanbul. And both Turkey and Qatari Armenians have been using her propaganda to their own benefit, and that is not something any Arab state should support. They should not be feeding into Qatari propaganda, even if it seems like it's useful against a common enemy.
Mm-hmm. What's the Trump administration's take on this conflict, and what are they doing to de-escalate or end this conflict?
To be honest, they're in a complex situation. They're not fans of Iran and Russia in their meddling. They're of course concerned about Turkish propaganda. They've tried to keep it fairly balanced and neutral. Secretary of State Pompeo expressed concern about the reports of the Syrian jihadists, but of course he has not actually stated that they are there or that they need to go, or in any way taken action to demonstrate that US believes there is such activity. He's of course concerned with the propaganda itself and with the Turkish aggression in general, but he does not. But the US understands that the satellite information and the facts don't bear up with the scrutiny. That a lot of it is information warfare. For the US to meddle in this militarily is unnecessary because Azerbaijan is fully capable of defending itself. Nor does US have any troops in the region, nor is there an interest to get involved between Russia and Turkey and to create an even more grounds for escalation politically. US has been under pressure from Armenian lobbyists, but at the same time, there's an increasing information that supports Azerbaijan's claims that Armenia attacked first, that it has been repeatedly attacking civilians. There is a lot less credibility to Armenians' claims to the same effect. So the U.S. kind of is not going to interfere with Azerbaijan's attempt to defend itself. It's going to make statements urging both sides to de-escalate, but even politically, it has trouble getting involved. What it could do is take reports of human rights abuses that Azerbaijan has put forth, examine them, and eventually sanction officials involved in approving attacks against civilians, which will hopefully deter further aggression. What it cannot do is get involved militarily and create further and add to this already growing mess. But Azerbaijan noticed that none of the countries have actually tried to punish Azerbaijan because they understand that both legally and morally it is in the right. They're concerned about Turkish claims, but they also understand that Azerbaijan is an important player. That there is evidence that Armenia has not been honest about some of its statements. Its own officials on Russian TV have actually admitted to launching attacks on civilian cities, and in order to cause panic. So, and an Armenian ambassador in the United States, under my questioning, had early this summer admitted to basically spreading fake news about Azerbaijan's attacks allegedly against Armenian targets. So this record of not being truthful, all the European and American leaders, they're aware of it.
Okay. Okay. One final question. We have seen a lot of people have taken this conflict as a religious war. So, what do you consider? What do you think? Is this a religious war kind of thing?
Absolutely not. And the only people who are spreading this kind of information are propagandists, not from Azerbaijan. By the way, none of them are. Azerbaijan is a very multicultural, multi-religious society, and it has not targeted any groups. It has Armenians residing peacefully within the country. It has not persecuted them. It has protected churches inside its territory, and there's no concrete evidence tying it to any attacks against Armenian religious institutions or doing anything that's specifically anti-Christian, as opposed to just defending its own geopolitical territorial interests. Armenia has tried to make it into a Christian versus Muslim conflict for the sake of certain conservative Christian sentiments in the West. The reality is more complicated because Armenia has ethnically cleansed both Muslims, Jews, and even other Christians in the past. It has persecuted Protestants and Catholics. So you cannot say that it's some sort of a Christian haven that supports all Christians. It's not at all the case. They're using this talking point to garner sympathy, but it's the conflict is only about territory, nothing else.
Thank you so much, Irina. I think these answers will be more than enough for our viewers, and I believe that they really enjoyed listening to our discussion. And I wish that we can, have these kind of discussions in future as well, to help people understand about the complex things in a more simpler way. I really appreciate your efforts in taking out your time and benefiting us. Thank you so much, Irina.
Thank you. I appreciate this and look forward to future events. Thank you.
It was really nice talking to Irina Tsukerman, human rights lawyer and national security analyst from the United States. And what we understand from the discussion is that Iran is supporting Armenia because Iran wants weaker neighbor. So Azerbaijan, in fact, doesn't endorse the Khomeiniist version of the Shia faith. And Azerbaijan is more secular country. And what we have also seen that Turkey is getting involved into this conflict to boost its image and to to run after the expansionist project, the neo-Ottoman expansionist project in Azerbaijan. And what we have also understood from this discussion is that Middle Eastern countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Bahrain, and in fact, their ally, United States, they're all staying away from the conflict. They don't want to get into the conflict to escalate it more. And Turkey, Iran, and Qatar, they're trying to escalate the matter for their own ulterior motives and ulterior benefits. And Azerbaijan is more of a secular country where you have people of all faiths and religions. And the most interesting thing here is you cannot give this conflict a religious color. And it's really sad to see, the people from Pakistan uninvitedly getting into this conflict and trying to support Azerbaijan, and some people trying to support Armenia. So what we see is it's of no use, it's of no benefit, and we have to hope for the de-escalation, and we have to hope for the end of this conflict. So my dear friends, I wish that you really enjoyed this discussion and the video. I hope to see you in the next videos. Till then, ma salama.